EDU-ARCTIC 2, Polar Research for Education, innovative program in Poland and Norway. Webinars.
Our classes is connected with EDU-ARCTIC 2 project. In the end of the classes, I will tell you where to find the activities connected with the lesson and the educational toolkit as well, where you can find some materials covered during today's classes, but not only the same. There would be more additional materials as well. So the first one is the Arctic and Antarctic, the comparison, because yes, I think that all of us has sometimes problems where the Arctic and the Antarctic is located. So when we are talking about the Arctic, we are thinking about the vast region around the North Pole, and it's very important to emphasize that also it is the area of living of about 4 million people, because for our perspective from Poland, when we are talking all the time about the polar regions in terms of scientific research, we more focus on animals, fauna, flora in general, because the Polish researchers very often did and do the fieldworks on Spitsbergen, on Svalbard archipelago. So there are no indigenous people there. But we have Greenland, we have Siberia, we have Canadian Arctic. So it is also the place where we have people. And in the Antarctic and the Antarctica, there are no indigenous people. Only the stations, scientific stations, belong to many countries like US, Canada, Russia, China, Poland as well. We have two scientific bases. It is Arctowski Polish Antarctic Station on King George Island and Antoni Bolesław Dobrowolski Polish Antarctic Station, which is located on West Antarctica in the continent. So Poland also belongs to those countries who which carry out scientific research in that region. So in the southern hemisphere, we have two terms describing the region, because we have Antarctic and we have Antarctica. So Antarctica is the continent only, and the Antarctic is continent plus islands around the continent, the Southern Ocean. So it is the bigger area than exactly the continent. I know that it might be a little bit confusing because, for example, in newspapers, in media, mass media, very often when the journalists write about Arctowski Station, which is located on the island, they wrote about the Antarctica. But to be more precise, it's not. Yeah, it's not the true. Yeah, that might be true, but it's in general. It's not precise information. I spent over 2 years in polar regions, working at two Polish scientific bases that operate all year round, in the north on Spitsbergen and in the south on King George Island. So I decided to present you the animal species that are typical for that part of polar regions. Of course, it doesn't mean that, for example, polar bears we can observe only on Svalbard archipelago, because they are typical for all Arctic area. But for example, polar wolves we can't meet on Svalbard. But yeah, I decided to pick up some species because it's impossible to talk about all of them. But some of the materials you can find in the educational toolkit. So we have King George Island. and Arctic Polish Antarctic Station. I marked it on the map in a red circle, and I also use the graphics with the planet to show you where exactly we are, or in the north or in the south, because I know that it might be a little bit confusing when I will be talking a lot about some animals. So yes, it's the left side, and on the right side, it's a Polish polar station Hornsund. It's located on Spitsbergen Island in the north in the Arctic, and the Spitsbergen is the biggest island of Svalbard archipelago. So the first big difference is not only with geographical meaning, but also in political one, because King George Island doesn't belong to any country. It is the Antarctic, and according to the Antarctic Treaty, the main document that describes the future of that region, the Antarctic belongs to all the countries who carry out the scientific research on that area, and it can't be used for any military purposes and economic ones. We will see what would be in the future, because the Antarctic Treaty is valid for, I don't know, approximately 10 years. And after that, we need to redefine the status of the Antarctic. We will see. I hope that it will be the same. It means not used for any military and economic purposes. And on the right side, in the Arctic, we have a more diverse and more complicated situation, because many countries, like I said, US, Canada, Russia, Denmark, Norway, have their northern territories in the Arctic. So it means that it's not a place that doesn't belong to anybody. So that's why we have different approaches. We have indigenous people, like I said, so it is the more differences. So that's why, for example, the approach connected with some animal species and their protection is different. For example, polar bears are under the protection in Norway, but in Canada and in Russia it looks different. In Antarctica and Antarctic, whole Antarctic region, we have clear situation, because every plant and animal species is protected according to the Antarctic Treaty. Yesterday I checked the weather conditions for Hornsund and for Arctic Station. So as you can see on here now, you should have much more low temperatures in Hornsund, because it's the real winter, Arctic winter. We have the polar night that begins in the beginning of November, so it's dark outside. And in Arctic Station, we have summer now. December and January, there are the months where the logistics is much more easier to get there, to organize the expeditions. So yes, the real Antarctic winter will come. So we have our main characters of today's classes, today's meeting. And on the left, we have penguins. Penguins are typical for southern hemisphere, not only for Antarctic, of course, but for the southern hemisphere. We can't observe them in northern hemisphere, unfortunately, only in zoos, but yeah, it's not the same. And we have in the north little ox and common moose. So the big difference, one difference is that penguins can't fly, but as you can see, those all species have very similar colors, plumage. So it is kind of a camouflage. The same works for the penguins, for little ox, and for common moose, because those birds are able to spend a part of their lives on the land and in the sea. They can dive, they can swim. So when they are on land, the black back visible from the air by the predator makes them more invisible. The same is when the bird is in the sea, because when the predator that comes from the depth will see the not black, but white belly, it might think that it is a part of the sea surface. So it gives extra few seconds to the penguin or to the little log to escape. So it is a very nice way of adaptation to the life conditions in both polar regions. And there are the predators that are fond of penguins and little logs. On the right, we have Antarctic skua and Glaucus gull that hunts for little logs. Those birds are big because their weight is about 3 kilograms. And they might eat everything. So it means that we can meet them around the base, and I observe it. For example, Antarctic skua was able to wait patiently for a couple of hours in the front door to wait for some snacks. Unfortunately, some tourists gave them the snacks, so they know that they will finally receive something. But it's not accepted type of behavior because it's a wide place. And all of the bird species are under the protection, so they can't be fed by humans. So yeah, and Glaucus gull, also typical one, and for the Arctic, the predator, and the technique of hunting is very special because the Glaucus gull is big enough to catch a little log in the air, so it looks terrible, I think, but unfortunately, yeah, it looks like this. But the penguins and the little logs, for example, has another method of protecting themselves, not only the plumage, the camouflage colors, black and white, but it is the type of behavior when they are doing the same activity in the same time. It means that when little logs go into the air, they do it in one group, not as individuals. The same is true for penguins. When they are going into the sea, they jump in the very same moment in one group. So when the predator has an individual and a group, it's obvious that catching an individual might be easier than a group. So it also, acting in a group, gives the birds extra few seconds for escape. We have pinnipeds. So for both polar regions, true seals are typical. But of course, we have different seal species. In south, we have weddell seal and elephant seal, for example, because we have more seal species. And in the Arctic, we have, for example, birded seal and common seal. Birded seal is the biggest Arctic seal species. It might weigh about 500 kilograms, so it's quite huge. And the name derives from, as you can see, the bird, the mustache that the seal has. And of course, in the Arctic, the seal's life is not that easy because we have polar bears, the main predators, who are fond of seals. So it was, for us as visitors of that region, very complicated to shoot or to to take a photo of the seal because it was really nervous. She was observing all the time. It was observing all the time the area if the polar bear comes. So the behaviors of that animal, of those animals, is different. And in the south, in the Antarctic, the seals are more relaxed. They are laying on the beach, sleeping. Yeah, so we made very long observations. We took a lot of photos and films of the animals, so they are more calm because they have no natural predators on the land. In the sea, there are killer whales. Yes, they are very dangerous for the seals, but yes, on the land they are safe and their behavior is different. We have also fur seals in the Antarctic, and fur seals and true seals are different. Sometimes we think that it is the one animal family, but it's not. On the left, we have Antarctic fur seal, and on the right, we have a Weddell seal. So there are three main features that distinguish fur seal and the true seal. For example, fur seal has ears that visible part of the ear, of the ear, and the true seals not. The same is with construction of back flipper, because it helps the Antarctic fur seal and the fur seals to move very fast on the land, and it might rotate. So the construction is different and used for different purposes, different types of different type of movement, and we can compare it to, for example, the piece of walking, let's say, or running on the land. It might be similar to dogs. So it means that encounters with fur seals were very funny, because at first we didn't know if they are friendly or dangerous. So, but the one information we got from our friends, from our colleagues, also the people who has a big experience in polar regions, that you can't escape, because Antarctic fur seal might decide to run after you. So that would be stressful situations. So we wait patiently when the fur seal will go away. And we have a different type of insulation against the cold. First, for fur seal is typical the fur, so that's why we have the fur in the name of that species. And for seals, for true seals, it's blubber. Blubber is a type of fat under the skin, a very thick layer of fat that protects very well against the cold animal. So it's a little bit different type of adaptation. In the educational toolkit, I will tell you about in the end of our presentation. You will find those interactive graphics that would be the links for that materials, and you can click on it to read in detail the descriptions. And we have interesting fact connected with Antarctic fur seal, because on the right we have leucistic type of that animal. It means that it has less melanin, which is the substance responsible for example, fur color, eyes color. So the leucistic animals are are different in color, let's say. So as we can see, the Antarctic fur seal has rather dark fur. For leucistic, it would be type of white, kind of white color. So of course, it is a very rare phenomenon to observe such kind of individual, but it's possible. So it's one of them. And we have unfriendly animals. Unfriendly, of course, when we are thinking about the beautiful seals. I said beautiful because seals, true seals, are my favorite animals. So I was quite happy to work in polar regions because I had an opportunity to watch them all the time, especially in the Antarctic when we had seals around the station almost. So for living with seals for 1 year, that was very nice experience for me, and I miss it very much. So polar bears are the apex predators of the Arctic. It means that there are no other predators that might attack them except of humans, of course. And that photo was quite interesting because it was taken on a glacier, and glaciers are not typical area for polar bears to be observed. They are rather on a shore, or of course in the area with the ice pack, from which they are able to hunt for seals. And it was a mother with a small cub, and she was escaping from the male polar bear that wanted to attack the cub. Unfortunately, among polar bears, we have the cannibalism, when especially male polar bears may attack the young polar bears because of hunger. Yeah, it's very often connected with lack of food during the winter time, for example. So the mother escaped, and fortunately she succeeded. And my colleagues who were doing some scientific field work research met it and took a very nice photo. So on the right side we have the worst seal ever. Let's say it's leopard seal. I'm laughing because in Polish literature concerning polar regions, sometimes the leopard seal is called like this, that it is the most unfriendly type of the very calm seal family. Yeah, because it's hunting for penguins. It's the only one in the Antarctic type of seal that hunt for birds and for bigger animals, because normally seals are hunting for fishes, for other small organisms living in the sea, but penguins are rather safe in their in their area. Sometimes a leopard seal might attack humans, but it's not like we are kind of, I don't know, food for it or something. Those accidents I heard about concerning the leopard seals and the humans were connected rather with curiosity or anger a little bit. So people who were on motorboats on a sea were attacked by the leopard seal, but I didn't heard about an accident where people were killed and when the main purpose of that attack was to be a food for the leopard seal. So it's rather safe. Another situation is with the killer whales, because yeah, they are really dangerous. But for example, in the Admiralty Bay, it's area where the Polish Antarctic Station Arctowski is located. They were rarely spotted. During the 1 year, we saw, I don't know, 1 or 2 times the group of killer whales. So fortunately for us, who did a lot of research in the sea, that was quite safe area. And in the end, we have reindeers and polar foxes, both typical for the Arctic. And here is the example of the summer and winter coat of that animals, because during the winter time, the main adaptation of reindeers is to have thick and very long fur that protects very well against the cold. And of course, the color of that fur is different. It's more white, and during the summertime, it's dark. The same dark or brown, the same for polar foxes and for reindeers. Reindeers, as you can see, are very often looked for something around the station. It's interesting because nowadays there are many reindeers around the station, Polish station in Spitsbergen. I heard from my older colleagues that are working, the scientists that are working with tundra plants. They told me that 15 years ago, the situation was different. There were almost no reindeers around the station, so that's why there was a lot of plants around. For example, we have purple saxifrage or many types of mosses, and now the flora in the area of Polish base is it's not so rich like it used to be 15 or 10 years ago, where there were no reindeers around. So they are nice. It's nice to observe them, but of course they have an impact on the local ecosystem. And about the polar foxes, as I know, they visit very regularly the station as well. It's also interesting because when I was on Spitsbergen, almost 10 years ago, there were almost no foxes around the station. So it's the same like with reindeers. The interesting fact concerning polar foxes is that the other way of adaptation, not only the fur, the coat for summer and for winter, is that they may store the food for winter. They use for it permafrost areas. So when they have a lot of food, they don't eat it in the same time, but put in a special dens made by themselves and store it for a couple of months for a winter, because during that time it's very hard to get enough food. Okay, so it's the almost last slide. I know that we have now 1 participant, so maybe I will not show the video to you. I will only send you the link to the material. It's a very nice video concerning the differences between Arctic and the Antarctic. It's in English, but we have Polish subtitles, very well done, let's say, so it might be useful. And as I said, there is an educational toolkit in English, comparison of Arctic and Antarctic fauna, where you can find all of the materials. Oh, I see that Michela joined us once again. So just I will repeat that on the chat I sent you the link to the video covering comparison of Arctic and Antarctic. It's made in very nice way. So if you if you will have enough time after the classes or in a other moment, you can watch it. I think it's very nice in English and with Polish subtitles. Yes, and here is the educational toolkit. I will send you a link as well to it. It's available in online and offline version. So it's up to you which one you prefer most. So it's the end of the presentation. Thank you so much.
Watch other recordings from webinars on our YouTube channel, youtube.com/EDU-ARCTIC. EDU-ARCTIC 2. From polar research to scientific passion, innovative nature education in Poland and Norway receives a grant of 240,000 euros received from Iceland, Liechtenstein and Norway under EEA funds.